Hey, good morning. It's Dr. Bill, and happy Sunday, and welcome to another episode of Beyond Limits, where spirit meets science. And so today's topic, as I indicated on Friday, is titled actually, Faith and Truth Anchors for the Journey. So what does that mean exactly? We're going to dig into that, but the theme of this episode is all about faith and its connection to truth. And we're going to frame that as a spiritual exploration, not necessarily religious dogma, because when people hear the word faith, that's what they immediately think of. But it's actually much deeper than that. It's more complex than that. And we'll talk about how faith acts as a compass in both our personal lives and in our business lives, professional lives, whatever that may be. So the framework for this talk is kind of an upgrade from a talk that I gave before some years ago about this topic. It was part of a series I did, which was called The Evolution of the Soul, and this one was on faith. And by the way, our next podcast will expand on this, moving into the aspect of truth and really deep diving on the meaning of what that means as well. Because again, it's more complex than we know. We have some understanding superficially about faith and about truth, but making those connections here and going deeper with each of these concepts is going to serve you in a better way in terms of moving through your personal life and business and whatever challenges you may be faced with. And speaking of challenges, have you ever been faced with impossible propositions? Incalculable challenges. There we go. Do you have any of those in your life? I bet you do. And you've come up in those before, right? And it's fine when it's easy, because when it's easy, the stuff we want to manifest, kind of happens, and it seems really easy. But it's the big things that we're going to dig into here that really make a difference in terms of where you are sitting with your faith and how this connects to truth. Because truth is timeless. It exists. It has always existed. It's only us waking up to that fact. Okay? So that's our framework for today of how we're going to dig into that. Now, what is faith exactly? Well, I talked about the connection to truth, but faith is hope anchored in truth. Simply that. It's very important. It's hope anchored in truth. And when we think of faith in the traditional sense, I think most people think of it as just blind faith. Like you just need to believe and have faith, whatever. And that's blind faith, but it's not the same as having faith that's grounded in a timeless truth. That's a big difference. It's much more powerful to have it grounded in some truth there. And how do we get to that concept of that? And again, we're going to deeper dive the truth aspect of this in our next podcast. But today we'll focus on the faith aspect of this. And I don't know if anyone ever saw the movie Interstellar, a sci-fi movie. I think it was Matthew McConaughey and I don't remember who else was in it. But basically the planet Earth, and this theme's been done before. I love sci-fi, but there's a lot of metaphors in terms of meaning, in terms of how we move through our life today. So for me in this story, the Earth is trash. It's been polluted beyond becoming unlivable. And so through some advanced technology, whatever, I believe it was like wormholes or whatever, they were going to travel to another galaxy. But to do that was a one-way trip for the person who was going to go try and do it. And no one would ever know if it actually worked or not. So if you want to talk about a story that's based on, to me, it was a movie of hope and unfathomable faith and belief. And at the core of that was love, which was the driving force, which was beautiful. So if you haven't seen that movie, go see it. And in fact, I'm going to rewatch that. I haven't watched it in a few years, but I want to rewatch that because we're talking about this today. But to me, that's it's a great metaphor for how we move into a place of faith that's grounded in timeless truth. And in that instance, the truth of it was they really believed the technology up to a point, but it hadn't been tested, and so they had to have some sort of faith to move into that. And but it wasn't just blind faith; they weren't just diving into it with sight unseen or whatever. There was more to it than that. So let me share some personal stories, and both in personal and professional life, of where faith has come into play. And in my last podcast episode, I was talking about the power of 8. And in that, I was talking about the what happened on August 8th, 1988, which was a pivotal turning point for me moving into my spiritual journey. Now, I haven't told you all of the story or the rest of the story behind that and what happened after that. That's really relevant to today's topic about faith. So, just recapping quickly here, in July of 1988, I had taken a vacation. I was actually working for, it was Pizza Hut delivery. We were the first market in 1988 to launch Pizza Hut delivery, and I had my own restaurant there in Atlanta, Georgia. And I took off vacation. I was pretty burned out because we did the launch for a few months before that. And so I took a vacation, went to Disney World in Florida, went to Epcot Center, and I went to the Living Seas exhibit. I don't know if that's still there, but it really rekindled my passion and interest in the ocean and that sort of thing. Because 10 years previously or whatever, I was looking to go into marine biology as a profession. And so fast forward, then I went out to California, did a trip in early August. And then I was so convinced I was going to go to school at UC Santa Cruz, that University of California, Santa Cruz, that I went and got my California driver's license on August 8th, 1988, before I went back to Atlanta, Georgia, knowing that I was going to go to school there. And I wanted to establish 1-year residency. And I did that because I had a friend who lived there and I was going to be staying with them. So I used their address. So is that gaming the system? Well, no, it's being really strategic about how you do things here. Okay, but then the reality set in is like, okay, I have a life back in Atlanta. How am I going to just drop all of that and move into that? And that's where faith comes in. And it's interesting, once you make a major decision like that, things start to fall into place that you don't even know how it's going to happen, right? And so when I got back to Atlanta, I went to open my restaurant the next day, and my key didn't work in the lock. And so my area supervisor, my assistant manager came to the door, and he wasn't supposed to be there. And I was only gone for like 2 or 3 days. I was just covering. He covered for me. But when I got back, the area supervisor had decided that wasn't okay, and I got fired. So talk about the universe making the decision for you, and sometimes it's you actually taking action to let things go. The reality was, it was a huge relief, and he just wanted my keys. So I just handed him my keys, and boom. I went to work that same day, working with my father as a contractor, making actually more money, and there were some other things that had to happen in that story to let go of. But then at the same time, my grandparents were living in Atlanta, Georgia. This is my mom's mom and dad. And my grandfather been retired many years, was an Episcopal minister. And so, by the way, my 4th book, or whenever that comes out, one of my books is titled Spiritual Inheritance, Merging Generations of Divine Wisdom. And the journey for that started when I was staying with my grandfather at that time. So it started in August of 88, and through October 88, for 3 months, I decided to go live with my grandparents at their house. And I would sit down with my grandfather at breakfast every day, and he would share with me all the stories of miracles he had seen in his ministry and all these different things that had happened. I was totally amazed by it. Things you can't even explain scientifically or however that happened. It is really about blind faith there in that sort of sense. But it was my only opportunity that I had to do that, so I took advantage of that. And my goal was to make enough money and then do a cross-country trip across the U.S. I've never seen any part of the United States beyond the East Coast. And so I decided I was going to do that, and I went to New Orleans, and I went to Texas and visited my brother, and then I went to Grand Canyon and all kinds of stuff. So I did all kinds of cool stuff. It was a great trip. But again, there was, in making that decision on that date and committing myself to that path, which was not only, I didn't even know at the time, the beginning of my spiritual journey, but it was also the beginning of the professional career that has led me to where I am today. That never would have happened had I not made that decision to do that. And that's where the faith of being in that sense of that, I had some knowing, right? There was some faith grounded in truth here, because I knew I was going to go to school there. I just knew it. And I could see myself doing it. I could visualize it. I could see myself there. And this is the career I was going to do. There were other parts of the story here I would tell you after that kind of changed my direction a little bit, that actually really did guide me to where I am today. Because obviously I'm not a marine biologist today, so something happened there. We'll save that for another podcast. But sitting with my grandfather for those 3 months, I also inherited, he gave me his box of sermons that were typewritten on paper, and over 300, almost 400 sermons that he gave. And his writing was beautiful. And I learned this some years later as part of my spiritual journey. But not only was it this jumping off point for my professional career, making that decision, but also was for my personal life and my spiritual journey. Okay? So faith played a huge role in that decision making of letting go of the numerous things. There's other things as well. We won't deep dive all of that. To let go of all of those things that were no longer serving me energetically, right? And that it was holding steady to that and moving into that. And of course, that's what led me on my journey to my professional career. And then of course, there are many stories here in terms of faith coming into play in my professional career and my entrepreneurial journey. I mean, NutriSelect.ai, a new venture that I've officially launched this year, is my 9th startup as an entrepreneur in almost 30 years in the dietary supplement space or industry. And they've all been various different kinds of businesses. This is a health tech pivot, but and some cool technology that's going to change an industry. But there's some faith I have in that, because I know all the problems within our industry, and I know what needs to change. And what I'm doing is not just putting another product or service out there in the market and go make some money at it or whatever. No, I'm looking to transform people's health and looking to transform an industry, because I have faith in that, I believe in that, and I have the experience and background and knowledge base to make that happen. So there's some faith based in truth from a professional standpoint on my entrepreneurial journey, right? And it's that sort of faith in your professional or business life that holds you steady, because you're going to run up against all kinds of things, no matter challenges, like I said, incalculable challenges or unbelievable propositions that you have to move through when you make those decisions, those key decisions, based on some faith, based on some truth or belief that you have in yourself of what you want to do. Now, I could say all those previous ventures I started were a waste of time. No, they weren't really, because there was a learning experience from each one of them, and it has actually paved the way and built the foundation of the success of what NutriSelect is going to do in this industry, in this new venture. So stay tuned for that. But in both arenas, truth and faith work hand in hand. They create resilience. They create the ability for transformation. This is what that will do for you. Now, how does faith and truth play into business and leadership? Okay. If I think about faith in general terms, let's go back to defining faith a little bit. The faith of the person who acts out of love is more crucial than the faith present in the object. Okay, this is very important. It is not required of whatever the thing is outside of us to have faith in it. It's the only thing is required of us to love in that knowing, that hope that's anchored in truth. Okay, so security gained from that faith and the power of such love, it's hard to disturb. You can't move that. It makes bold action possible when you have that kind of faith or truth in your life. that belief that is all-knowing, that everything is where it's supposed to be and everything unfolds in a beautiful way. And it's that surrender of letting go of all those extenuating circumstances, those things that no longer serve, so that faith and that love and that belief can flow forth from within you. This is powerful in terms of a spiritual truth. This is powerful, I don't care if it's in your business or personal life. It comes into play in both cases. So, what is the faith and truth in business and leadership? Let's talk about that, because I want to kind of tie both of these things together, right? And faith in business is not wishful thinking. It's not about I hope this happens or whatever, that sort of thing. No, it has to be grounded in some sort of truth. It's trusting in truth. It's trusting in your values, your vision, and your purpose. If I look at Nutriselect, I have a vision that's going to transform a whole industry, and I'm holding fast to that. I'm holding steady to that because I know that that's possible. Okay? Actually, the part of developing the app and the approach and the patent that I filed on it, to me, that's a no-brainer. That was the easy part. The hard part is actually holding to the vision of like, okay, is this really possible to transform something like this and transform a whole industry? It's a big play. I kid you not. And there's going to be a lot of challenges to do that. But what I do know is that it's possible, right? And it's based in some truth here. So again, it's holding true to my values because one, I believe consumers shouldn't be wasting their money on buying products that don't work for them. That's wrong. And there's too many people in our industry or companies that are making millions of dollars on selling products that aren't really doing anything for people. To me, that's wrong. That's not right. So it's about doing the right thing for me. It's the right thing to do. So I have values around this concept of what I want to do. That's powerful energy, folks. That gives you powerful energy for transformation, having faith in that and knowing that you have to have some values about who you are, what you want to do, no matter professional or business. And you have a vision there that you hold on to, and you have a purpose. So how does this play out for entrepreneurs when that happens, right? It's believing in unseen outcomes when the data isn't enough. Now, I know consumers' struggles and because of years of being in the industry, so I believe that. But do I actually have a lot of data to support that? No. And that's probably going to evolve and change as we go out there, but I'm going to listen to that, to hear what people are saying so that we can make something that's really powerful and transformative, not only for their health, but also in transforming the whole industry. Now, holding steady to your values, your vision of what you want to create, and that is going to come under external pressures from market, from investors, from regulators. No doubt you're going to be brought up against all of that. And it doesn't matter what it is, but it's about acting boldly and being grounded in a deeper truth because you know something that nobody else knows. I know something that nobody else knows. And even my closest advisors are people who are supportive and believe in what I'm doing. They're only a small part of the way there to understand what it is that I'm doing, because obviously they don't have the vision in my mind. They don't know what I see. Okay, and that's true for any entrepreneur that's doing that. Now, we see stories all the time about successful businesses and entrepreneurs and founders that do all these great things. But what we don't see is all the stories and all the challenges and all the pressures that those founders came under to make that business a success. And it looks easy from the outside, but I'm telling you it's not. And it's not for everybody, okay? In fact, even one of my advisors said to me recently, said, Bill, I couldn't do what you're doing. And some people knowing your limits of what it is you want to do, that's very important. But it takes a special type of breed, I'd say, to endure so much pain and hardship, because it's really, really hard. It is not easy. So when Nutriselect is really successful one day, you're going to go back and watch this podcast and say, okay, I told you then that was the case. And I don't even know all the challenges that are still to come here, but I do know that we're going to be successful. So again, I'm holding on to that faith in that, and it's not wishful thinking. It's a knowing that has to happen. It's the right timing and the right time for this sort of thing to happen. Now, let's move into the spiritual science of faith. Okay? What does that mean? And there's if I talk about spirituality and science, and this is all about who I am, it's really my journey, the scientist who had a spiritual awakening and synthesizing these paths together, because they're not separate. It's all one thing. We are spiritual beings having a human experience and not the other way around. So in blending these two concepts, faith aligns with the psychology of resilience. Okay? In fact, I was just asked recently, I have my 4 books that are on my website that talk, are about, really framed around my spiritual journey. But someone approached me and said, and saw my podcast on resilience. I did 2 or 3 podcasts ago, and this podcast I did one on resilience. And he said, have you thought about writing a business book for that? And it was kind of in my peripheral. I wasn't really consciously looking to do that. But it's true, and this is why I'm kind of blending all this together in today's podcast, is because to me it's all one thing. So faith aligns with the psychology of resilience. I mean, it takes a lot of resilience. It takes a lot of courage to move into something that's never been done before. Okay? And there's a neuroscience of belief. Okay? And the way your brain is wired and things that happen for that, right? But truth provides the framework. It's the anchor that prevents self-deception, okay? Otherwise, it is just blind faith. And there's a formula for this. And so if you want to think of this as an equation or a formula, it's faith plus truth equals clarity, courage, and creative action. I'll say that again. So faith plus truth equals clarity in the mind, clarity of your vision, and the courage to move into that, and creative action. It allows you to create things that you weren't even thinking about. I mean, this is happening right now with me with NutriSelect, where I'm in this vision of that, and it's almost daily new things come into my consciousness that are creative of another business channel or another vision of how this is going to work, right? That builds this bigger picture, adding more pieces to the puzzle. And so, and that can only happen when you're really grounded in this faith of this knowing, this truth of everything that's happening. Can you see the vision of those things? Can those things come into your awareness and your consciousness, okay? So if we think about it for a minute, we talk about those impossible propositions, right? It's coming into a realization that the awareness of the impossible has already occurred. Think about that for a second. It's the awareness that the impossible has already occurred. It's not something that happens down the road. It's something that's already occurred. Think about that. That's a powerful concept. So the vision I have for NutriSelect or whatever is that it's already occurred. I'm just stepping into it. Okay? And again, that's the equation for if you want to think about science and spirituality blended together. Now, let's reflect a little bit, and here's some key points to highlight and takeaways to this, okay? First of all, faith is not passive. It calls for bold, loving action. Truth is timeless. It doesn't shift with circumstances, right? No matter what changes around you, truth is truth. Personal and business challenges are impossible propositions. And that's where faith reveals what has already been done. And miracles often come in hindsight when we recognize the alignment. Okay? Again, faith doesn't rest upon a proposition because it's already occurred. And the ultimate faith, the belief of something that is so grounded in truth and knowing that there isn't any other thought in your mind that is entertained, wouldn't make any. That would make sense. Wouldn't make any sense, right? It has that has no bearing here because it's coming to that place of those impossible situations, those incalculable challenges, those things that will keep you up at night and say, I don't know how this is going to occur. I don't know how I'm going to overcome this. But what I do know is that through my belief, through my faith, through my love, that I simply just have to be that love and be that within myself and love everything. Move back into that place and ground myself back into that presence that I am that. And then you don't have to figure out those incalculable challenges, right? Because the way will present itself. And that's the miracle of the journey of faith resting upon truth. And life and those miracles occur, big ones that we couldn't even imagine start to show up in our life. So here's some things for you to think about. What turning points in your life required faith before truth was visible? That's a deep question. Think about that. What turning points in your life required faith before truth was visible? Because again, it's already occurred. We don't see the miracle till usually after. It's like looking at this. Talked about successful businesses. Everyone sees, oh wow, bravo, that's great. You're a successful business. You exited and sold your business for $1 billion, whatever. But it wasn't that simple. There was many challenges and many points in that founder's journey that led to that. So what turning points in your life required faith and truth before it was visible? Second question is, where in your work or personal life do you need to anchor in truth instead of fear? Contemplate that. Where in your work or personal life do you need to anchor in truth instead of fear? And the last contemplation question here. What miracles might you already be living without recognizing them as such? Because again, if you understand the concept of how faith is hope anchored in truth, we don't usually see it till after the fact. So the truth is that miracles occur every day, big and small. They're happening all the time. We just don't see them. So this is about getting to sit back and contemplate through your meditation, whatever, your spiritual practice, and say, okay, what miracles are already happening in my life without recognizing them as such? Well, I could say from a year and a half ago when I first had the idea for Nutri-Select, I had no idea it was going to be where it was today as a business that's about to be going to revenue. And so you could view that as a miracle. And all the things that had to take place over the last year and a half or so to build that were really important. So let's wrap this up with a short meditation-like reminder. So like when you go sit down and do your meditation. The very experience of your life is the miracle. And your personal, professional life, whatever that is. Okay? So I'll leave you with that to sit with. Now, I invite you to go share your reflection with me on LinkedIn. You can message me on the website. However you want to do that, that's fine. Please visit my website, drbillclark.life. You can go read about the books. I just published my first book, Divine Whispers, Poems of Love and Spirit. You can go purchase that on Amazon. There's a link on my website. And there are other books coming soon, so stay tuned for that. And but also you can go back to, I mentioned these previous talks. In addition to Beyond Limits, Where Spirit Meets Science, there's another Spotify channel that just audios of previous talks that I gave, that I recorded some years ago, and that's on Insights for the Soul. You can join me on social media and follow along there. All the journeys in professional and business are all in the same social media footprint on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or X, I guess. And as I mentioned, there are some podcast archives there on Insights for the Soul if you want to go check those out. And my books are there. Please go check those out as well. Also, the other thing that's coming, I can give you a preview. The next book that's coming is The 5 Keys to Unlocking your Spiritual Awakening. 5 Keys to Unlocking Your Spiritual Awakening. That is my second book. You'll see that on the website. I'm hoping that's going to happen soon. This is based on a workshop that I gave. There's a whole story behind this that came about it. And it's also the foundation for my upcoming TEDx talk, which right now we're in the process of working with an agency to secure the stage for that. And that's in process. So as soon as I know more about that, I will certainly let everybody know. So again, I want to thank you for joining me today. I'm Dr. Bill with love and gratitude. I'll see you on the next episode of Beyond Limits, Where Spirit Meets Science.